into my eyes. Do you see fear? You come at me with sword and spear, but I come in the name of the God of Israel. Yes! Right between the eyes! Did you see that? Anyone? Of course not. Okay then, one more time. Tally, not now. I'm trying to protect us from this Philistine. Whoa. No, not that way. Come on. Back to your mom. Right, Philistine. Oh, wait. Right between the eyes. Oh, of course. That one you saw. Tally! Tally, no! I'm coming, girl! Whoa, easy! Shira! I will bring her home safely. Whoa! Tally, wait, no! There you go. I'm almost in. Okay. Oh! Tally, stop! No! Oh, that doesn't help. That does. Stop. Thank you. 할래니 נפשי ישובב ינחני במגע לצדק למען שמו.
Good day, everyone. It's an exciting week with Thanksgiving around the corner, but I just wanted to welcome everyone who's on this call, especially the fans of King of Solomon. It's so cool to have you guys with us tonight, and we're really looking forward to welcoming Solomon onto this panel and just have a bit of a chat with him down the line. I hope you guys enjoyed the demo. We are just so excited about this movie. And the other thing I wanted to say to you guys as you watch this live stream, if you've got questions, please feel free just to pop them in the Facebook link there, and we'll start answering them towards the end. I want to start off answering a few questions, though, myself, which is just to recap. We've been doing these live streams for a few weeks, just trying to gauge interest in the support for the movie. And there's two questions I'd like just to recap on. Why a movie on David? And then why animation? Why is animation the medium we're choosing to tell the story? And I just want to start with David. And in the book of Acts, it talks about a verse that says, I found in David, son of Jesse, a man after my own heart. I was so lucky. I grew up in the wild of Africa. We were surrounded by elephants, buffalo, lion. And in that environment, my parents were incredible people. And they did teach me about God. But I bumped into God for myself personally out in the wild, seeing a lion charging, seeing a thunderstorm, seeing a rainbow, or the beautiful dew on the leaves in the early morning. And I just fell in love with God. And I just realized that he's this most incredible, expansive, adventurous, fun, kind personality. And when I got to university, so many of my friends, I was talking to them, and they viewed God, if at all, as this like austere, boring headmaster. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is not God. God is just this incredible personality, so kind, so fun, so adventurous. And David's life captured my imagination because he's just the most amazing character. And I felt like if we could tell a story on David's life, it would give us a window and give people a window into God's own heart. And I love story. Ever since I was a little boy, although I grew up in the wild, I just used to draw every weekend, like stories and cartoons. And I really started to, when I got to university and just saw the power of movies, the incredible power of movies. They're like Trojan horses, the stories told through movies that get under people's defense mechanisms and plant a seed for good or bad. And I was like, wow, stories are such a powerful medium to connect with humanity. And I just started to think it would be incredible to tell a story on the life of David. So yeah, okay, thank you. I just got a quick note on the tech side. So that's why David. I wanted to tell a story on David. And by the way, this has been a dream and a passion that's been building for 20 years. And we've been building, and I'm going to come to why animation, but just to say very quickly, we've been building the team, the pipeline, the whole way we do things for this moment. Over the last 20 years is what we've been building, because we wanted to make a movie at the highest level to genuinely compete with the best of the best in the world, quality-wise, with movies like Moana, Frozen, Tangled. Oh, and one thing just to say about this movie, I'm going to get onto why animation in a second, but I'd say this movie, the best way we could describe it is a blend of Prince of Egypt with all that beautiful artwork and authenticity, and then Tangled, the energy and the fun of Tangled, and just bring those two kind of worlds together into the story of David. Why animation? For me, I've got this incredible passion for animation because animation has got this power to cross race, cultural, age, and gender barriers better than any other medium. And I also love young people and kids. Their imaginations are so ripe and ready to just connect. And so I love animation, and it's incredible power to reach. If you look at the movies released every year, there's probably 1,000 live action movies made and maybe 15 to 17 animated feature films made a year. And if you go look at the top 10 in the box office, you'll always see 3 or 4 animations within the top 10. So animations have got this incredible hitting power. They are just so powerful. And we just thought it'd be amazing to make a movie, an animated feature film on David, just to connect with the world. The other thing I wanted just to remind us of on this live stream is that the incredible musical aspect of this movie. If you look at David, for those of you who know his story well, we know he is the most incredible songwriter. He wrote over half the Psalms in the Bible. He was a singer, he was a songwriter, and as directors, one of our passions is to make this have a beautiful musical DNA and element to it. We're not a fan of just taking music like a lot of animated feature films do and just shove them in because kids like it. In this instance, we can very authentically weave music and songs into our story. And I was saying one of the other live streams, if they can make a musical on the life of P.T. Barnum, the greatest showman, and it was such a success, imagine what we can do with the life of David, who was genuinely a musician and so authentic. So why David? Just because he's this most incredible, beautiful, expansive character that gives us a glimpse into God's heart. And why animation? Because of its power to cross race, culture, and age barriers better than any other medium. So we're going to invite Solomon later. Just want to say today's a very, very special day for us. We've been doing what we call testing the waters campaign with the Angel Studios guys, where we just gauge interest for the project. Because the one thing I want to say about animation, if you can spare me a moment to give you a farming allegory, but animation is like a fruit orchard. With an apple orchard, you've got to put in fertilizer and water for 5 years, and then you'll get apples for 20 years. So it's different to wheat or maize, which you turn over every year. The challenge with animation is the incredible cost of doing it. So you need this capital cost, and it takes a long time to do it. And this is the big barrier to entry that stopped a lot of independent producers getting a major animated feature film made at that quality, just the budget of it. So I didn't want to set out to make a movie we have to make excuses for the budget. We wanted to set out a movie that competed and had the right resources to do it properly. And that's why with Angel Studios, and I'll talk a little bit about the Angel Studios guys, the most incredible bunch of people, but with them, we've just been trying to gauge interest, and we've had this most overwhelming response. I mean, I've honestly been blown away by the enthusiasm and the passion to get behind this movie and get this movie a David animated feature film made. And today's a very special day because we actually go live with the real funding today. So it's actually literally gone live in the last 10 minutes. So if you want to support the project, I'll come back to this more, but just to quickly say it up front now, you can go to angel.com/David, and the actual funding process is open. I just want to say it, and not being a salesman, but we've got a $5 million fundraise phase now, and then we'll do some more fundraising next year. On this movie, we've already spent $19 million, and it's going to be a very limited amount of space at the moment. So if you want to invest and you want to be part of it and join the journey, we would be so excited to build a community. And it looks like from the testing the waters, we've got such massive support. I think the figures we got up to was $13.8 million in pledges. So it's going to actually, unfortunately, very little room for people to get involved in this phase. But if you'd like to get involved, we'd love you to go there. You go to angel.com/David, and that's where you can legitimately invest in the movie. And all the terms and conditions and all the details on that page, I won't go into it now. I'm just trying to share the heart of the movie, but you can go there. So we'll talk more about that as we go. And right now I'm just going to jump onto, so we've talked about why David, why animation. We've talked about the fact that this is a super exciting day because we're opening our funding round, the $5 million funding round, which is really, I'm so excited. And if I could just rewind 1 second again, spare me a moment, sorry, but just been blown away. I'm so excited by the Angel Studios guys and the way they think. And the way they think is building community to fund and distribute movies, which I find so exciting because this is a journey that I think you really want to go on as a community. And my wife loves this one African proverb. It says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And when it comes to such a major endeavor, like an animated feature film on David, I really feel if we want to go far, we need to go together. And we just need that community to build and support us and move forward. Yeah. So that's cool. We're going to come back to that, and we're going to get to Solomon shortly. The one thing I wanted to jump on, we've been running this little side thing, which is basically the David Awards. And one of my passions as I look at David's life is how he took on giants. We know he took on Goliath. He took on many other giants in his life. So we've been running a really cool little campaign on social media, which is basically the David Awards. And what I'd just like to share with you is that next week, if you go on our social media, you can see the people who've been nominated. And perhaps while I'm talking, if the tech guys could just run a few slides of people who have been nominated. And the one thing I want to say is and quickly before we go into the nominations, how to vote. You can comment on this live stream with the name of the nominee you're voting for, or you can go into any social media post and just vote for people. I just want to say we are not going to choose the winner of the David Award, but you guys are as the crowd and as the public. We'd really like it to be a voted thing so that the crowd chooses. It's not a committee like at the Oscars where they choose the movie. This is out to the crowd and to people to vote for their winners. And what we were just trying to find was these beautiful stories where people have had a David in their life. And we're just going to run a few. I won't have time to talk through all of them, but you can just glance through them while I'm talking. And these are some of the awards we've had so far. I'd just love you to jump on our Facebook page or Instagram page and just go and look at all these stories. And then if you can vote for who you think should get the David Award. And the very cool thing is, next week we're going to have another very special guest called Jonas Myron. He's a Grammy Award winner writer, incredible guy, and singer, incredible musician. He's going to be joining us to talk about David, but he's also going to be the person who hands over the final award next week. So he's going to announce the winner. He's going to tell them who they are. He's going to have got all the voting from the crowd. And then we've got a very cool little prize for the winner. We're going to take one of our beautiful pieces of concept art. We're going to print it out on a massive canvas. And then the two directors, yours and myself, and this is a quick screenshot of it that we just passed over. We're going to sign it and send it to the winner. But basically, guys, we're just trying to celebrate people who are taking on giants in their life, like the small people taking on giants. And I just think there's some really cool stories we've seen here. And if you could go on and vote, we'd really love that. And you could be part of the journey with us. So without further ado, I think that's a bit about the David Awards. If you've got questions, we'll circle back to it. So please, questions about the David Awards, question about the actual movie itself, just feel free to start pushing them through. And before I invite Solomon in 1 second, I just want to say, if you want to join us and be part of this exciting journey, you can go to angel.com/David, and that's where you can actually invest and be part of the journey. And I just want to say, it is an adventure. It is, if I can say, there's a saying in The Lord of the Rings where they're talking to Gimli the dwarf, and they're going on this big adventure, and he says, certainty of death, small chance of success, what are we waiting for? And I think that's the spirit of adventure with which we go into this, and with where we're going. We need brave people to sail with us. I love telling my kids one last story before I invite Solomon about this beautiful acronym called HBD. And on the old maps, when they used to got to the edge of navigated waters, they had this acronym HBD, which meant here be dragons. In other words, if you sail past this point, all we know is all we can tell you is there's probably dragons. And one of my passions as a storyteller and as a human being is to always push boundaries and go past those HBD signs and into unnavigated waters. And I really believe that with Angel Studios and with a community, we can be the first people to make an animated feature film that is of the highest quality and get seen globally around the world in cinemas. So I'd really like, if you're someone who likes adventure and you want to be part of a big story, I'd honestly encourage you to jump on board and go to angel.com/David and join the ride, because it's going to be exciting. And one of my passions, just quickly to say, it doesn't just stop with the movie. We've got in our minds to do this turn the David movie into a Broadway musical later, which would be amazing. I just see Eric from West Indies, I think, invested $100. So thanks, Eric. And I'm looking forward to being with you. And Tatiana, looking forward to being with $1,000. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be on your team and for you to be on our team. And Nick. And we're going to do this together. As I say, that African proverb, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And Brad, thank you as well. I'm just excited to get to connect with all of you as a community, because this is going to be such an epic journey. And the one thing I love about animation, like I was talking about apple trees, it is hard to get apple trees made, but once they start bearing apples, it goes for 20 years. And if you look at the Lion King Broadway musical, it's earned $8 billion for Disney. It's the single biggest earner. And if we can make an incredible animated feature film, that can lead on to other things that'll come out of this journey. But I don't want to delay our very special guest. So I'm going to ask Solomon to join us. And we're just so privileged and lucky to have Solomon with us. Solomon, welcome, and thank you so much for your time. It's honestly such a privilege to have you on board. And I wonder if you could kick off. Obviously, your fans are on this live stream, but there's many people who don't know you. So could you just take a few minutes to tell us, I love stories. So tell us your story, what you're about, where you came from, and we'd just love to hear a bit of background about yourself and who you are and your story, how you got to where you are.
Awesome. Definitely. Well, Phil, it's a pleasure to be here. When you guys wanted to partner about telling the story, David, I was more than excited for this. And just a little bit about me. I was born in the United States here in Louisiana. Currently, we reside in Atlanta, Georgia. And my whole life has just been about how do we love people back to life in Christ. And it's been something that's been special to me. I've pastored, done missions trips, and really look for ways to really just spread love and provide hope and help people overcome some really hard circumstances. I will have a job here in Atlanta, Georgia, and working within human resources and helping provide jobs to the communities here within our local region here, and really enjoy that because it gives me the opportunity, one, to be a part of the community, to make a difference every day that we're here within the States. But more than that, I love to see people grow, both in several ways, both physically, spiritually, and emotionally. And so I've been involved in some form of ministry since I was 16 with a local church within the United States. Currently now working on our ministry called Hey God. And it's just our aspect of really our mission is simple, loving people back to life in Christ. And it's several different aspects of just practicality, making sure that people know that they're loved, that they're valued, but then also using their gifts, similar to David, to overcome the giants in their life.
That's amazing. And I just jumped on your Instagram page and looked at your prayers there. I just find it so inspirational, by the way, Solomon, because one thing I saw in David's life, if you go look at the Psalms, just how he was so honest with God. You know, he didn't like tie his prayers up in a bow. He just like poured his heart out to God, and with a simplicity and a childlike faith. And I really love what I saw in your prayers. I just feel like you're talking to your dad. It's not like a religious thing, which I loved. And yeah, so I just wanted to ask you about how you talk to God. I think it's very cool from what I can see on Instagram, you know?
Yeah. When I pastored, one of the biggest questions that I received was, how do you pray? And people felt that they couldn't be honest, and there was a formula for it. One thing my dad always taught me was that God is a God of authenticity. And my dad's name is David, and my name is Solomon. And so he always wanted to have a son named Solomon. But one thing my dad taught me every Sunday was that we were going to read scripture together. We were going to apply it. But he said, Solomon, you will have to learn how to apply it by talking to God. And it was this moment. I was like, well, how do I do that? And he was like, just like you talk to me. And it began this relationship to where just true authenticity. I strongly believe David's most powerful weapon was his ability to pray. It allowed him to align his heart, God's heart. And as he aligned his heart with God's heart, it's that scripture that comes in and it talks about if God goes before us, who in the world can be against us? And he wasn't perfect, but he was able to protect and keep his relationship with God in a beautiful place. I believe you talked about the Psalms. Psalms 51 is one of the most Psalms ever written for me because it shows the authenticity of David when he's like, you know what? I have to protect this relationship because without this, I'm nothing. He's like, don't take your Holy Spirit away from me in this aspect of prayer. And so my father was a big inspiration and a big motivator. I watched my dad pray every morning and I saw the results in his life, and he taught me how to pray. And I'll be honest, God has walked me through so many situations, challenging, insurmountable. I mean, to see the testimonies of what God has done, I'm amazed, but it's been honestly because of prayer.
Yeah. And Solomon, another thing for me, I mean, I've traveled the world a lot and I just love everyone around the world. So my heart in making this movie is to connect with everyone, whether they believe in God or they don't believe in God. I just find David's story so awesome. And I wanted to ask you a question. Like, do you think his story, do you think it's the right moment for a story on David, and that it's the right time in media to have a feature film on David, and that it can connect with people of faith and people who may not actually believe, but his story, I've just got such a passion to tell his story for the whole world. But I wanted to ask you, do you feel it's the right time for a character like him? And the one last thing I want to say is, but you can answer a bit more, is like, we all know we're not perfect, you know? And the one thing I can relate to with David is just that incredible childlike faith he had in God's love for him, even though he knew he wasn't perfect. He just ran to his dad. And I just hope this story is going to touch the world. But anyway, the question to you is, what does it mean for you to make space and media for stories like the David movie? Is this exciting for you and someone in your world? And what does it mean to you to have David, like a movie like David, come to the world? And Solomon, I'm just going to say thanks. Along the bottom there, you and I are just seeing all these people investing.
Yes.
Patrick and all. And thank you guys for that support. But over to you, Solomon, with your question about David and the world.
No, I love to see the investments. I love to see people's hearts tie into the movie. And Phil, I'll be honest, I think these investments help answer your question more than, any words that I can say. Is this moment of David's story is one that touches everyone. I think everyone can see a part of their life in David. And I love, because of the authenticity of it, we start with dreams in life of where we're going to be and grow. And then all of a sudden life comes and those dreams turn into nightmares. And it's that moment of, can you survive the nightmare to get to the dream? Can you walk through when you thought life was going to go one way, and now all of a sudden it's not what you thought, but you have to fight some giants. You got to be around individuals who are supposed to support you, but then they try and kill you. It seems like that betrayal and heartbreak, and you deal with, just getting into a place that maybe you want to be, but are you prepared for? Are you prepared to be king? I see so many different storylines of where people can find their own self in David. And I'll tell you, storytelling is one of the most beautiful aspects of helping people learn and grow. People remember a couple things in life. They remember stories and they remember statements. And for me, I am big on stories. I remember watching Lion King and Prince of Egypt growing up. When Mufasa died, I had no idea why it was such a big deal for me in Lion King. But it was a moment that stood out, because storytelling has a way to really connect the hearts, and it begins to show people that it gives them hope. Hopefully it gives them inspiration. It gives them love. It shows them a path. And David's story is such an impactful, a bright light to where people can find themselves and see how they can overcome the obstacles in their life to do the things that their dreams and things that are in their heart that God's placed in there. And so I definitely believe that it's time for today. I am personally excited because I love the excellence that you guys are putting behind this. Me and my wife, we just went to Disney World about 3 weeks ago, and we were at Disney World. And it was amazing because I remember we were at Disney, and as we were there, I was amazed at the power of storytelling. Walt Disney took a mouse and he changed the world, and he had coming because of the ability to tell stories. And I can't tell you how far we can have people grow in life by being able to tell really amazing, inspiring God stories and helping them see themselves.
Yeah. And I'm going to ask you, come to a bit of a question on the music, but I just wanted to say there's so many things to mine storytelling-wise out of David's life. I'll just share the one thing that's actually not in our movie, but it really captured my imagination with David. So when he was in exile from, King Saul was trying to kill him and he had to flee into the wilderness, and he's out there, and it says everyone who was in distress or running from the law or in debt came to him. So everyone who was basically in trouble or a trouble causer gathered around him. And what struck me about that was his love for them, because out of that group came these mighty men. We read later about these incredible exploits of these mighty men. And the one story struck me in particular, Solomon, was the three mighty men who went to draw water for him from the well of Bethlehem. And the story was, for those who don't know, that he's in the wilderness and he came from the town of Bethlehem. He said, if only I could have water from the well of Bethlehem. What people don't know is that at that stage, the Philistine army had totally taken the town of Bethlehem. So these three men, without him knowing, fought their way through an entire army, drew him water, fought their way out, and brought him water. And I was like, wow, what had he done for them that they loved him so much, And then I realized, wow, David is a precursor to Jesus, because that is when Jesus captures your heart, like that is what you would do for him. You'd do anything, but it's not out of religion or out of rules. It comes from the heart. And so one thing that inspired me about David, he won these guys' hearts through his love, obviously. So there's just so many beautiful dimensions. But I guess the question I'll put your way is, the musical side. Like, how powerful is music, and what's your perspective on music and the role it can play in movies, and in particular this movie, David?
I will tell you, I think David was a master at music, and I believe that when you take music is an instrument, and it is a weapon that can be used. You look at if you look at the story of Joshua in the Bible, and you begin to look at him with the wall of Jericho, there is power in music, and especially when music is channeled and it's inspired to uplift God. I tell individuals that our ability to praise God with our worship, with our music, it knocks down the walls and things that are in place that we really just are bigger than what we need. And it doesn't necessarily fight our battles, but it does knock down a lot of the walls that we have to allow us to find the way that we need to go. And when you look at David, he was able to play the harp, and it was able to soothe the spirit. It was able to bring peace. And we all see that music, how powerful it is today. You begin to see the impact it has on our culture, on our society. You look at our celebrities, you look at the individuals who have a lot of notoriety, and there's a lot of musicians who have that. And so there's a moment to where music is very impactful. It is very instrumental, and I believe that it is something that God wants to use for his glory. Other individuals, you see the other power of music. You begin to see when music is used negatively, the impact and the influence that it has on individuals. But there is a connection with music and the soul. And I strongly believe that David, as he uses that, he used it to connect his soul with God. And that's why I believe that when you have this part of the movie, I think it's going to be amazing because David understood the power of music and he used it to continue to get closer to God and not further away from him.
Yeah, it's incredible. And near the end of his life, when he's dying, he describes himself as Israel's singer of songs, not as, which is so interesting to me, not Israel's king or warrior, although he was all those things, but the thing that he saw himself as was a singer of songs and songwriter, which I find beautiful. We've got this thing about David, which we saying, which is warrior, shepherd, poet, king. And that gives kind of the dimensions of his character, which is really exciting,
Definitely.
Yeah, so there's just so much to mine out of his life, and that's what I'm excited about. For those of you just joining, I just want to say we're talking about David, an animated feature film, and I've got Solomon Jordan with me, who's an incredible guy, and if you want to follow him, you can go look for him on Instagram as well, because I think he's very inspirational. And our passion, just for if you've just joined us, our goal, and we've started on the journey already, is to make an animated feature film that's got the authenticity and the art beauty of, for example, The Prince of Egypt. It's got the fun and the energy of Tangled, and just bring those two together, but tell our own story in an authentic way. So that's what we're talking about tonight. If you've just joined us, and that's our passion there. In terms of anything else that strikes you, Solomon, that you'd like to say about David and why it might be an interesting story for people? We've got a couple of questions. It does fight. Oh, cool. It does fight battles. With praise is the greatest weapon that bring down strongholds. Yeah, thank you for that. I won't try to pronounce that word, your name, but yeah. While we're talking, if at the back side of the thing, guys, if you have any questions you want to start putting up slowly, please feel free to. But I'm going to ask Solomon another question. So, Solomon, just in terms of David, tell us about giants you've had in. How did he inspire you any time in your life, and perhaps a giant that he helped you beat or take on in your life? Is there any moment in your life that you can remember where it's like, if David could take on Goliath, I think I can. Give me a life story of yours where he inspired you, if he did. Yeah.
Yes. No, definitely. There's so many moments, and I think one of the most impactful was probably my very first moment in growing up and learning the power of prayer. And I'll be honest, there was a situation in our family. We had somebody who was really sick, and they were really struggling, and it was very hard, especially when you're kind of in that teenage years. You're trying to understand good, evil, life, death, and all those aspects of it. And I remember I was praying to God, and I was asking God, for healing, especially for this family member. And things weren't going well. They weren't going well at all. This family member had been very close to us. And you begin to just see they were a really good person. So you begin to see an individual that you're just like, why did this have to happen to them? And I remember as I was praying, and I was telling God, I was like, look, I believe in healing. I believe that this individual can be healed, and I want to be a part. I want to help in this situation, but you feel so helpless. You feel like there's very little that you could do. And I remember I was sitting there and I was talking with this family member, and I was talking with them. We just began to pray. I remember we were in the hospital, and I remember they grabbed my hand, and as I grabbed their hand, we just began to pray. And as we began to pray, it was in this moment that you just begin to feel a presence. And it's the moment where you feel the presence and it comes around. It's indescribable, but it reminds me of King David and why he fought so hard to go back and make sure that he could get the Ark of the Covenant. He wanted to make sure that he understood the value of having the presence of God, especially in his life and what he needed, and he fought for it. And I remember my family member who was there, they just began to say, you know what, I want to continue to have this. I want the presence of God. And at that time, we only had CD players. We didn't have the MP3s and the iPhones and that aspect. And so I go, and I remember I got a boombox and I brought the little stereo recorder back, and we just played worship music. We began to put worship music in, and it just began to have that presence of God that was in there. And I will tell you, there were scriptures. We were encouraging one another. It was a moment to where there were some CDs that were just very big back then in worship, where that came out, and kind of this vineyard worship model that came out that was big. And I will tell you that this individual wasn't given a really a good chance to live. Not only did they live, but they came out and they had a clean report when they left the hospital. And for me, it was a very honest moment where I was able to step back and begin to see the power of prayer and the power of the presence of God. And for me, it was like that was something I felt overwhelmed. I felt like there was ways that I could not really help. But I think that was one of the first times that I've seen it. There's been several other times. God has been, he has been with me through so many prayers. And I think that's where a lot of people see the inspiration for me on social media is just helping people walk through life, whether it is dealing with everyday life or marriages or dealing with jobs or dealing with dreams or heartache, betrayal, children. It's trying to help them understand that no matter what's coming against them, even though I have the saying that not everything in life that happens to us is good, but it doesn't mean that God can't turn it around for our good and his glory.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Thank you. Solomon, for someone who's coming into the animation industry from the outside, I don't know, you watched the demo at the beginning. Have you got any questions? Because, we're so into the animation world, and have you got questions for us about how we're telling the story or the animation? And not, if you don't, that's fine. But I'm just wondering, you may have questions in your mind that other people are thinking about on the call. So have you got any questions for us about what part of David's life we're telling or the process? If you've got questions, feel free to fire away, and I'll see if I can answer.
Definitely. The one question I do have is this, do you see it as a series of movies? Is this going to go through the entirety of his life? Because David's life is so in depth of so many different, I look at certain chapters in scripture that can just be a movie in itself. And so how do you, is there a way that you're going to have several movies that talk through it, or will there be a series after, or are you planning to capture it just in this movie alone?
Okay, that's a great question. So we thought we'd start off with one animated feature film. And for this film, not to say that there won't be possible for a sequel, but our first job is to tell an amazing first film. So this is not a TV series, and it's not a series. It's an animated feature film. So like Tangled, like Moana, like Frozen. The period of his life that we've chosen to tackle is from shepherd boy to king of Judah. So and then about a third of the way through the movie comes the fight with Goliath and the giants. And that's epic. And then we go into King of Judah. Obviously, once he became King of Judah, there was still a long period before he became King of Israel, which we're not dealing with all of that. And I think we could make another 2 movies on his life if the first one goes well. But so it could easily turn into like there could be more to follow. But for now, it's from shepherd boy to King of Judah. And the thing I love about that part of his life is, if I can just tell you why that part a little bit, because he was born into a world of fear and doubt. There were people they were oppressed. There was a lot of fear. There was a lot of doubt. And he burst onto the scene. I remember reading a thing of Eugene Peterson's when he said, David entered the valley of Elah with a God-dominated imagination, and everyone else had a Goliath-dominated imagination. And in our world today, so many people are living with this fear and concerns, and there's so many problems. It's no different to when David was born. And I just love the way he brought hope to his world. And, before him, there was this 400 years of no mighty men. In his lifetime, suddenly there's this long list of mighty men that was inspired, And the other thing about his life, though, I just wanted to share, and why are we telling this part of his life? I think so many people, we get a dream when we're younger, and it's a God-given dream, and we feel like it's something awesome we want to do. Then
Yeah.
you hit the hard yard. Like David was anointed king, but then he ends up in the wilderness for 7 years. And so his life wasn't all rosy, like we were saying. And I'd love
Yeah.
the story to encourage people. If you've got a dream to be a singer or doctor or whatever you want to be, you can watch David's life and say, oh, wow, he persevered. He went through wilderness and he came
Yeah.
out the other side. And so I think it's a beautiful part of his life to tell, because it's got so many beautiful dimensions. Yeah. Is that making sense?
Yeah. No, it definitely does. And I think that's needed, because David was anointed, and then David went back into the field doing the same thing. And it's that moment of how, when you have these dreams, but you have to maintain in a place that you don't feel valued, you feel like you weren't invited, you feel overlooked and overshadowed, but remaining excellent in those areas. You talked about the imagination. And one thing I always talk about with David is, people looked at Goliath and thought Goliath was too big to fight. And David looked at Goliath and said, he's too big to miss. And it's this moment of he got to a place where he fought the lion and he fought the bear. And it's in these moments, in being faithful where God has placed you, it prepares you for the place that he's placed in your heart. And it's that moment of, it's not always roses, it's not always a lot of fun, but it is preparation. And I think it's important for us, to your point, that people know that you're not forgotten. God sees you, even though you may feel like you're all by yourself out here with some sheep doing something meaningful and not invited to the party. God knows exactly where you are. And if he called you to it, he will see you through it. But we have to be faithful, because God can do everything for us but believe. He can call us, he can tell us, he can show us, but it's up to us to take the slingshot and sling it.
Yeah. No, it's such an encouraging story, because there's just so often that's our life story. It's people's story. They have this dream, hit obstacles, and I hope this can inspire people. Keep going through your obstacles. You'll get through it, and you'll get to the other side. And by the way, living in Zimbabwe, where I grew up, it's amazing when you read that thing. He says, I fought the lion and the bear. I've witnessed more than one a charging lion. And if you watch a lion charge you, the power and the energy of that animal coming towards you, I'm like, whoa, David was an incredible guy, to take on the lion and the bear. By the time he got to the giants, it was like, I can do this,
Exactly.
So that's great. And on the demo, just for those of you listening, the one thing I wanted to share on that demo is, what I love about that story is, and I hope it came across in the demo, it captures his heart, that he would risk his own life to go down this cliff in search of one little lamb. Vernon from Texas, thank you. And by the way, for $1,000, guys, really thank you to those of you investing. And just to say, we're part of a family and a community. And as you invest, I see you as part of the family, the David family, and where we're going. And it's so exciting to build a community. And if you want to invest, you can go to angel.com/David. And I think it's going to be one of the most exciting adventures anyone's ever been on. I think it's going to be awesome. Yeah. But so for those investments coming in, thank you. But the one thing I wanted to mention to you, Solomon, that song he's singing in the demo is actually the 23rd Psalm in Hebrew.
Yeah.
And I'll talk a bit about it with Jonas Myra next week. But just his sense of the shepherd with him is just incredible.
Yes.
Yeah, so time's ticking along, Solomon. I don't know if you've got any closing question or comment you'd like to make before we go to final questions and show the demo one more time. Have you got any last words or questions you'd like to say before we go to questions?
No, I will say this. I think this is a beautiful project, and I definitely think that it is needed for today. I think of not only the children it will inspire, but, Scripture tells us to keep a childlike faith. And I believe that there is an ability to change the world, especially when we keep that childlike faith, that ability to believe we can fight the giants, that ability to believe we can stay faithful, that God is there no matter what our situations are, but that ability to remain connected to him in prayer. I see that throughout David's life. And for me, as I stated earlier, I believe that was David's superpower, was his prayer life.
Yeah.
And it was his ability to stay connected to God. And it was his ability not only to be connected, but to know what those next steps were. And so for you guys, I know you guys have been in prayer about this. I know this is a giant of a task to take on. And the beauty of it is I am excited to back it. I will definitely be investing as well in supporting supporting the mission. Yes, I definitely believe in it because it's needed. And just as storytelling, there's a lot of stories people can learn. And I love superheroes. I love to see all of our movies, whether it's from Marvel or our comics and those aspects. They're fun. But I tell you, those are imaginary in an aspect, But there's a moment to where we can tell stories that inspire people that is attainable. I don't know if anybody will ever truly turn into, the Hulk. I don't know if anybody will ever turn into Iron Man, but I do know that we can have King Davids, and I do know that we can have people who follow after God and who say, you know what, he was a man who had a heart after God. And I do know that we can do the storytelling. And so excited, tons of encouragement. I'm going to be praying for you guys, not only praying, definitely investing in spreading the word. So congratulations. I know it's going to be an amazing journey. But I know it's going to have an amazing impact as well.
No, Solomon, thank you. So really appreciate you joining us. And for those of you who've joined Solomon Jordan, you can check out his Instagram. If I'm correct, it's King of Solomon is the Instagram handle. Yes. Is that right? Yeah.
That's
and there's some very cool stuff and inspiring prayers on there. So for those of you who don't know Solomon, go check out that Instagram page because I think it's awesome. Solomon, thank you. I just want to say one last thing before I say goodbye, and then I'll go to questions after that. But I love what you're saying there about the superpower, because on that demo, as an example, when he's on that cliff, you can see that moment of fear. Yeah. When he looks out, he connects with God, finds that faith, and that's his superpower. And I love what you're saying. I mean, I love superhero movies, but like you said, none of us are actually going to turn into the Hulk, but there are plenty of us who can turn into David,
Yes.
And so I think that was a very cool takeaway. So thank you for that, Solomon. And
of course.
Thank you for joining us. I really appreciate it and look forward to connecting with you on this journey as you invest. Thank you.
Oh, yes. Please let me know. I'll do anything to be a part.
Thanks, Solomon. Have a good day, and we really appreciate you joining. Thank you so much. So that was really awesome to have Solomon with us. Such a great guy. And I just want to check with the tech team if there's any questions that need answering. Because I'd love to just take questions if there are. For those of you, while I'm just waiting to see if there's questions, and if there are, okay, so it sounds like we've got a couple of questions coming. Do you have to be in the US to invest? This is unfortunately yes, at the moment you do. We're talking about how we solve that into the future, but right now, the way the funding is set up and the regulations, you have to be in the US to invest currently. But what I'd like to say, if you want to stay connected, and maybe when we solve this dynamic, you can still send through your details, so at least we can stay connected with you. Because I'm hoping, and I might be speaking out of turn, that by next year we can work out a mechanism whereby people from outside the US can invest, because that would really be my heart. But at the moment, and the way this first round is, that's it. Yeah. So this is from Osman. Good day. What a great job with the David movie. Seriously, thank you, by the way. I had two questions. When will the movie be available, and when will it be available in Spanish as well? Thanks, and God bless. I love that question. So quickly to answer it, most animated feature films take 3 to 4 years to make. Luckily, Osman, we are about a year to a year and a half already. No, in fact, we're 20 years into the movie, actually. Well, my journey's been 20 years. In reality, that $19 million that's been invested, $19.6 million has been invested over like 18 months. There's still another 24 months of production to go. So our estimate, if we're successful in raising all the money we need, then we'd estimate that we'd release the movie in 2024. And my estimation would probably be around about summer 2024. And when we release it, we must release it in all major languages. So English, Spanish, French, and other major languages like Shona in Zimbabwe as well. So I hope that answers your question. So another question here. Question, is the demo a finalized scene for the movie, or is it just a concept? Oh, that's a great question. So originally, we set it out to be the opening of the movie. And that was how we scripted the beginning of the movie. So, and we did that demo like more than 2 years ago as a proof of concept, because human animation is incredibly challenging to do. So we did it to prove that we can do human animation at a very high level. As we've moved on, we've actually tweaked our design on David, so we feel it's got even stronger and even better. So it won't actually be a final scene in the movie, although we originally wrote it as the beginning. It'll end up as just a beautiful piece that helped us on our journey, but a standalone piece. And out of interest, we also, with some partners in the US called Go Minnow, we are also funding 5 other shorts, which will be similar to the demo, which are going to be 5 by 5 minute shorts, which is going to be aspects of his life as a young boy, where we're going to have a warrior episode, a poet, king, shepherd, and worshiper episode. So we're going to be putting together some other shorts as well. But to answer your question, no, it won't be a final scene in the movie. And just for those of you who are wondering how far we've got in the movie, we are already into the 4th draft of the script. We've got a full animatic on the movie, and with scratch sound, we've done a lot of the music for the movie. And then there's over 1,000 pieces of environment, concept art, and character work. And we've been working with, besides an incredible local team, people who've been at Pixar for 20 years, people who've come out of DreamWorks. I mean, it's just been incredible to see the team that's the gravity that's been built around this team. In fact, it reminds me of, I'll answer this question now, but one last thing, it quickly reminds me, it says when David was in the wilderness, God drew people to him. And it's just been amazing, the magnetism of this movie and the talent it's attracted has been incredible. Juan Pablo, Phil, any advice for those who want to write a short film based on the Bible like this, David? Yeah, so the one bit of advice I'd give you, which might sound a bit strange, Juan Pablo, I don't know if you've seen the movie Finding Forrester, and Sean Connery's trying to teach a young guy to write, and he's kind of standing at the typewriter, and he says, just punch the keys, boy, punch the keys. And I think the one thing I've learned is that the best way to learn anything is just to start writing. And don't overthink it. That's one thing about creativity, is don't overthink it. Just start writing and then send it to people, get their opinion. And the other thing about creativity is just to encourage you, you've got to have a really thick skin, because as you go on the journey, and if you really want to hone a skill and grow a short film like that, you're going to have to chew the meat and spit out the bones, because you're going to get some good advice and some bad advice. But one thing with creativity, you're going to have to hold lightly to and not be insecure about it. Just get out there and try. The one thing I love in life is that saying no fear, which means don't have fear of failure, because fear of failure just stops us doing so many things. Just get out there, give it a go, and start writing would be my one bit of advice, if that makes sense. Yeah, so I love that question, by the way. So I don't know if there's any more questions before we go. Just for those of you who, as we go towards the end of this, I just want to just finally close off and say, we're going to end off by showing the demo again. And so those of you who joined the live stream later, I'd really encourage you to stay and watch it, because I think it'll give you a sense of the quality we're aiming at. And then we're also going to show a little pitch video, which I think is really cool, because it'll tell you a bit more about the movie and the way it's getting made. So if you can hang on and watch that, I'd really encourage you to. But just to say, our heart is to tell a movie that is incredibly inspirational, is so much fun, so entertaining. But in that, we help people get a wind of God's heart. Like that this story, you'll walk out having laughed, cried, loved it, but also being touched and inspired. And I really, just to say again, we haven't done this over a short time. We've been working on projects like, our studio's worked on projects like Jungle Beat. Bonnie, thank you so much, for that investment of $2,000. That's so exciting for us as filmmakers, just to see that, because that's really backing. And Brett from UT, thank you as well for that. The one thing I really want to encourage those of you watching is, we haven't just arrived at this David film thinking, oh, we'll make a movie on David overnight. This has been a 20-year journey, as I was saying. And I want to give you one example that we've worked on. Jungle Beat is a brand of ours that we've built. If you go to the YouTube channel, our Jungle Beat YouTube channel, we've got over 7 million subscribers. We get 150 to 200 million views per month. And we also have made a film called Jungle Beat the Movie, which if you're in the US, and most of the world except Africa actually, you can go into Netflix and you'll find Jungle Beat the Movie. And we did that with a fraction of the budget we're aiming at on whether we're going to do with David. And just go have a look at that movie, because it was in the top 10 in US Netflix for over 10 days. I think it was like 14 days of live action and animated films. The reason I say all this, though, is just to say I'm a passionate believer in quality, crawl, walk, run. And so we've been, over the last 20 years, really building our storytelling skill, our technical skill, our visual skill, and through intellectual properties like Jungle Beat, as one example, we've been building towards this moment. So if you join us at this moment, you're joining us, in my mind, at the very moment where we're stepping onto the big stage, but we are ready. If I can say, we've killed the lion and the bear, and we're definitely ready to take on Goliath with this making of the David movie. And I'd love you guys to be part of that with us. If you do want to invest, you go to angel.com/David. And I'd just really encourage, if you want to invest, to move quickly, because we did have $13.8 million of pledges. The emails will go out to all the pledges during today and just let them know that they can start investing. And thank you. It looks like we've already got $41,000 invested just over this last hour, which is incredible. And one thing we want to promise you is we are going to go out and make the best movie we can with all the skill we've got and with this amazing team we've built. So I just want to say thank you so much for your time. I know time's short. For those of you who are going home for family for Thanksgiving, travel safely and have a really wonderful time with family. It's just such a beautiful thing to be with family. And yeah, just hope it's a great week for all of you guys, particularly in the US where you celebrate Thanksgiving. Have a great week. We're going to end off by just showing the demo and a bit of a director's pitch. So please stick around and watch that. It'll give you a sense of the quality of the film. But thank you for your time, and hope you have the most amazing week and a good Thanksgiving.
Look into my eyes. Do you see fear? You come at me with sword and spear, but I come in the name of the God of Israel.
Yes! Right between the eyes! Did you see that? Anyone? Of course not. Okay then, one more time. Tally, not now! I'm trying to protect us from this Philistine. Whoa! No, not that way! Come on! Back to your mom. Right, Philistine. Oh, wait! Right between the eyes. Oh, of course. That one you saw. Tally! Tally, no! I'm coming, girl! Whoa, easy! Shira! I will bring her home safely. Tally, wait, no! There you go. I'm almost there.
Oh, that doesn't help.
That does. Stop.
Thank you. 예나 할래니 nafshi yeshobeh yancheni במגלה צדק למען שמו.
What if there were a Bible movie that was as powerful as The Prince of Egypt and as fun as Tangled? That's about as likely to happen as David beating Goliath. See what I did there? Well, it's happening. We are making an epic David and Goliath animated film. David will be an animated feature film that shows the power of the David story with the humor, music, and adventure of your favorite animated movie. With your investment, we can bring David to life with the production quality of a classic animated film while revealing God through one of the Bible's most powerful stories.
Did you see that? Anyone?
A group of filmmakers in South Africa called Sunrise Animation Studios has been carefully assembling the right team to make David. This David project has already generated $19 million in investments and inspired some of the world's leading animation film professionals to leave major Hollywood studios and be a part of this story. The Sunrise team includes senior contributors to movies like Moana, Monsters, Inc., Soul, and Big Hero 6. As well as Grammy Award-winning composers. Basically, David is the answer to the question, what if the best Bible stories were told by the world's best animators and musicians? Click the link to learn how to invest in David today. David tells the story of a young shepherd who gains fame as a musician and a warrior for the king.
I'm trying to protect us from this Philistine.
He shows the viewer what it truly means to be a man after God's own heart. David is the original underdog that has gone on to inspire the greatest underdog stories of all time. Don't believe me? Just re-watch Harry Potter and Star Wars. Instead of using magic or the Force to defeat giant villains, David uses the power of God to overcome a literal Goliath. And he reminds each of us that we're the underdog of our own stories. And through God, all things are possible. David's story has never been told on a cinematic level. And to accomplish that, you need a combination of a good budget and good storytellers. The faith community has the right storytellers, but most independent Bible films look like independent Bible films. But with your investments, combined with the storytelling prowess of Sunrise Animation Studios, we are finally telling David's story in a way that belongs on the silver screen. And, did I mention, it's a musical? So beautiful. The creation of David the movie is a Goliath-sized story. Sunrise knew that in order for a small film studio to make an epic movie on par with the big boys, they'd have to nail it between the eyes, pun intended. And after all these years, they've assembled the right team to go the distance. All that's missing is you. Click the link to watch a small teaser we made for David. David will be distributed by Angel Studios, the same film studio behind the smash hit success The Chosen, a TV show about Jesus that has over 300 million views and has generated over $100 million in revenue. Sunrise Animation Studios created Jungle Beat, an animated brand that has a feature movie on Netflix with a sequel in production and gets 140 million monthly views on YouTube. If they can do that with a monkey and an elephant, imagine what they can do with one of the most iconic figures of all time. When you invest in the animated film David, you're not just helping to create an epic animated adventure based on one of the most popular books of all time. You could actually share in the profits. Of course, we can't guarantee that you'll make a Goliath amount of money, but we will say The Prince of Egypt made $218 million in revenue at the box office, plus 2 decades of DVD, TV, and streaming sales. David has everything The Prince of Egypt has, like powerful songs and breathtaking animation. And one thing it doesn't, this baby lamb. You do the math. And aside from the potential financial return, bringing such an important story to life can be incredibly rewarding.
Hi there, my name is Phil Cunningham, and I was inspired by this character and thought if we could tell an animated feature film around the life of David, it would inspire people to take on the giants in their life and to live bigger, braver, bolder lives.
David has the chance to be the next big movie that every kid, parent, and Pixar fan will fall in love with. Click the link and invest today.